Maya had always worked hard for the things she wanted. After years of saving and cutting corners, she had finally bought a used car. It wasn't brand new, but to Maya, it was a symbol of her hard work and independence. Her daughter, Zaria, was so proud of the car, too. They had spent days cleaning it, taking care of it, and showing it off to their friends. It was more than just a car. It was a milestone for them. On a warm Tuesday afternoon, Maya was driving back home after work. The streets were quiet, and the air was filled with the sounds of the neighborhood. She was in a good mood, feeling like things were finally going her way. But little did she know that day would change everything. As she approached a traffic light, a police officer pulled up beside her. He was in a squad car, his uniform crisp, and his sunglasses hiding his eyes. Maya didn't think much of it. After all, she had done nothing wrong. But as the light turned green, the officer followed her, signaling for her to pull over. Maya wasn't sure why she was being stopped. She didn't feel like she had done anything wrong, but she complied. She turned on her blinker, pulled to the side of the road, and stopped. The officer got out of his car and walked over to Maya's window. "Ma'am, I need to see your driver's license and registration," he said sternly. Maya nodded and reached for her glove compartment. She handed him the documents, asking, "Is there something wrong, officer?" The officer didn't answer at first. Instead, he took the papers and looked at them carefully. His demeanor was cold, and he didn't seem interested in explaining himself. Maya, still trying to understand, asked again, "Is there something wrong? Why did you pull me over?" The officer looked at her with frustration in his eyes. He didn't seem happy with her question. "You were driving too close to the car in front of you," he snapped. "That's dangerous, and I need to inspect your vehicle." Maya, shocked and confused, tried to stay calm. "I wasn't too close," she explained gently. "I was just driving normally. I didn't break any rules." But the officer wasn't listening. Instead, he waved off her response, telling her to step out of the car. Maya, even more confused, complied and stepped out, her heart beginning to race. She had never been in trouble with the police before, and this whole situation felt strange. "Now I'm going to move your car," the officer said, sounding impatient. Maya's heart dropped. Why was he moving her car? She had done nothing wrong. As he got behind her car, the officer's movements were reckless and fast. Maya shouted, "Wait! What are you doing?" Before she could even react, the officer slammed his car into hers, scraping the side of her car with a loud metal-on-metal screech. Her heart sank. He had just damaged her car, the one she had worked so hard for. "Why would you do that?" Maya demanded, her voice shaking with anger. The officer seemed unfazed by the damage he had caused. He just looked at her and said, "It's not that bad. Don't make a scene." But to Maya, it was a big deal. Her car was damaged, and the officer wasn't taking responsibility for it. She felt a mix of anger and disbelief. The officer didn't seem sorry at all. He was just treating it like it was nothing. Maya tried to remain calm, but inside, she was furious. This wasn't just about the car. It was about the disrespect, the way the officer had treated her, and the way he acted like she didn't matter. The officer finished taking a quick look at the car and said, "You're free to go. Just don't make this an issue." As he walked back to his car, Maya stood there in shock, looking at the damage he had done. It felt like her whole world had shifted in that moment. This car wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol of her independence, and now it was marred by the officer's carelessness. But Maya wasn't going to let him get away with this. She pulled out her phone, took pictures of the damage, and made a note of the officer's badge number. She wasn't going to just let it slide. She knew she had to fight back. not just for herself, but for anyone else who might face the same thing. As Maya drove home, her hands gripping the wheel, she kept thinking about how to deal with the situation. She had to report it. She had to make sure this didn't happen to someone else. The officer couldn't just get away with this reckless behavior. Once home, Maya immediately called her insurance company to file a claim. She explained the situation, providing the officer's details and the photos she had taken. The insurance agent was kind and understanding, reassuring her that she would be covered for the repairs. Weeks went by, and Maya continued with her normal life. But deep down, she was still angry about what had happened. She didn't want to feel powerless, but that was exactly how the officer's actions had made her feel. But then, out of nowhere, she received the insurance payout. It wasn't just enough to cover the repairs. It was more than enough. The payout covered the full cost of fixing her car, but it also gave her some extra cash to upgrade certain features. Her car was now better than before, cleaner, shinier, and with upgrades she had always wanted. One day, after receiving the payout and getting the car repaired, Maya saw the same officer who had damaged her car while driving in the neighborhood. He didn't recognize her at first, but when he saw her car, now shiny and fully repaired, he did a double take. He had no idea what had happened. Maya smiled to herself as she saw the officer's confused look. He didn't know that his carelessness had turned into her victory. Her car was better now, and she felt more confident than ever. The officer's mistake hadn't just been fixed, it had been turned into an opportunity. Maya sat quietly in her car, still processing what had just happened. The officer had just scraped her car, and now he was walking back to his squad car as if nothing had happened. She couldn't believe it. Her hands were shaking as she grabbed her phone and took pictures of the damage. The loud scraping sound still echoed in her mind. The officer didn't even apologize. Instead, he acted like it was no big deal, almost as if it wasn't his fault. Maya's anger started to build. This wasn't just about the car, it was about respect. He had no right to treat her like this, to damage her property without even acknowledging it. As the officer drove off, Maya couldn't help but stare at her car, now with visible damage. The large scrape and dent on the side of the vehicle felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just the car that had been hurt. It was her pride. This car was more than just a mode of transportation. It represented the hard work and sacrifices Maya had made to provide a better life for herself and her daughter. Now it felt like that was being taken from her, too. Maya took a deep breath, trying to keep herself calm. She knew she needed to act quickly. The last thing she wanted was for this to drag on and get worse. She pulled out of the parking spot and made her way home, still fuming. When Maya got home, she didn't even bother unloading her bags from the car. She went straight to her phone, searching for the right people to call. She had to report the damage and make sure the officer didn't just get away with it. Maya's first call was to the police department. She filed a formal complaint, detailing everything that had happened and explaining how the officer had recklessly damaged her car. She made sure to note the time, the location, and the officer's badge number. Maya knew that having everything documented was crucial if she was going to hold him accountable. After finishing her complaint, Maya called her insurance company. She explained what had happened, emphasizing that the damage had been caused by the officer's reckless actions. The insurance agent was empathetic, but there was nothing they could do about the officer's actions. They only covered the repair costs. But that was all Maya needed. She was going to get her car fixed, no matter what. Days passed, and Maya tried to push the anger aside, but it was hard. She couldn't help but think about how unfair everything felt. She had worked so hard to get this car, and now it was damaged because of an officer's careless mistake. Maya wanted justice, not just for herself, but for anyone who might have experienced something similar. She knew she had to keep fighting. Finally, the insurance company called. Maya was told that her claim had been processed and that she was going to get a payout to cover the repairs. The damage was extensive, but the payout was significant. It wasn't just enough to repair her car, it was more than enough. The extra money allowed her to upgrade her car and even add some features she had always wanted, like better tires and a new stereo system. Maya felt a mix of emotions. Part of her still felt anger over the officer's reckless actions, but another part of her felt a sense of victory. She hadn't let him get away with it. She had turned the situation around. A few weeks later, Maya's car was ready. It had been fully repaired, and more. The upgrades she had made with the insurance money made the car shine even brighter than before. Maya was proud of how it looked, and most of all, she felt empowered. The officer had tried to ruin her day, but in the end, his mistake had led to something better. Her car was more than just fixed. It was improved. Maya couldn't wait to drive it again. The sense of pride she felt when she got behind the wheel reminded her that no matter what life threw at her, she could handle it. The officer had tried to break her down, but Maya had come out even stronger. One day, as she was driving down the street, she saw a familiar face. It was Officer Anderson, the same officer who had caused all the damage. He was parked across the street, talking to another officer. As he glanced over and noticed Maya's car, his eyes widened in surprise. He recognized her car immediately. It was the same car he had damaged weeks earlier. But now, her car looked brand new. The damage was gone, and it was more polished and upgraded than before. Maya couldn't help but feel a little satisfaction. She slowed down as she passed him, making sure he saw her. She smiled to herself. His mistake had backfired in a way he could never have predicted. After the shocking encounter with Officer Anderson, Maya was still shaken. The damage to her car felt like an unfair blow, but she wasn't the type to back down. She knew that she had to take action, not just for herself, but for the principle of the situation. Maya immediately pulled out her phone and took pictures of the damage. She made sure to capture the deep scratch and the dent, making it clear that the officer's actions had caused significant harm to her car. She knew that documenting everything was important if she was going to make her case. After gathering all the evidence, Maya knew the next step was to file a claim with her insurance company. It was the best way to make sure the damage was covered. Maya picked up the phone and dialed the number she had for her insurance agent, trying to calm her nerves. "Hello, this is Maya Carter. I need to file a claim for some damage to my vehicle. An officer caused it and I need help," she said. The agent on the other end was understanding. "I'm so sorry to hear that, Maya. We'll take care of everything. Can you provide some details of the incident?" Maya went on to explain the situation, detailing how the officer had recklessly damaged her car while moving it without permission. She provided the photos she had taken, along with the officer's badge number and other necessary information. The agent reassured her that the process would begin right away and that she would be contacted soon to begin the claim. Maya hung up, feeling a little more hopeful, but there was still that nagging worry in the back of her mind. She wasn't sure how long this process would take, or if the insurance company would cover everything. What if they didn't? What if she was left with a huge bill? But she pushed those thoughts aside. She had done everything right. And now she just had to wait and see how it played out. A few days later, Maya got the call she had been waiting for. The insurance company confirmed her claim and told her that they had reviewed the photos and the report from the police. Since the damage had been caused by an officer's reckless behavior, they would cover the repairs. Maya felt a huge sense of relief. Her car would be fixed and she wouldn't have to worry about paying out of pocket for the damage. But there was more good news to come. The agent informed her that because the damage was significant and because of her comprehensive coverage, she would receive a substantial payout. It wasn't just enough to fix the car. It was more. Maya was speechless. She hadn't expected this. Not only would her car be fully repaired, but she would also have extra money left over. This wasn't just a simple repair. This was a chance to improve her life. The insurance payout meant she could upgrade her car, adding some new features she had always wanted. She had been thinking about getting better tires for safety, and maybe even installing a new stereo system. Now, she could do all that and more. Maya spent the next couple of weeks working with the repair shop to get her car fixed. The damage was repaired, and the upgrades were added. She was amazed by how good her car looked after everything was done. The car now felt brand new, and Maya couldn't help but smile every time she got behind the wheel. But the most surprising part of all this was how the insurance payout had changed everything. What started as a frustrating and unfair situation had turned into a real opportunity for Maya to improve her car and even invest in herself. The officer's reckless behavior had led to something she hadn't expected, a chance to upgrade. A few weeks after the repairs were finished, Maya was driving her car through the neighborhood when she saw Officer Anderson again. This time, he was pulling someone over at the side of the road, his typical stern look on his face. As he glanced over at Maya's car, he stopped mid-sentence. He looked confused. He didn't recognize the car at first, but when his eyes settled on it, they widened in surprise. Maya's car was shiny and new-looking, the repairs flawless, and the upgrades made it look even better. She could see the officer trying to figure out how it had happened. His eyes went from the car to Maya and back to the car again. It was clear to Maya now that he had no idea she was the same person he had damaged the car for. Maya couldn't help but smile a little. His actions had backfired, and now she was driving around in a car that was better than ever. She drove by slowly, making sure to catch his eye. The officer looked embarrassed, and Maya felt a small sense of satisfaction. Her calmness and patience had paid off. While the officer's careless actions had made her angry, they had also led to something much better. Maya wasn't just satisfied with the repairs. She was proud of herself. She had turned a frustrating experience into something positive, and she knew that she had made the right choice by staying calm and working through the process. She had gotten used to the new upgrades, and every time she drove, she felt a little bit of pride. The car was now better than before, and it had all happened because of the officer's reckless actions. One afternoon, while she was out running errands, she saw Officer Anderson again. He was standing near his patrol car, talking to another officer on the side of the road. Maya recognized him instantly, but he didn't seem to recognize her, at least not at first. Maya slowed down as she drove by, taking the opportunity to glance at him. She couldn't help but smile a little when she saw his reaction. The officer was staring directly at her car, clearly surprised. His eyes darted from her car to her, then back to the car again, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Why was he so shocked? It only took a second for Maya to realize why. When Officer Anderson had damaged her car, it had been old and worn. It wasn't in terrible condition, but it wasn't anything special either. But now, her car looked like it had just come out of the showroom. The scratches and dents were gone, and the upgrades she'd made the car look brand new. Maya couldn't stop the satisfaction that surged through her. The officer had tried to break her down, but instead, His actions had led to something even better. His mistake had given her the chance to improve her car, and she was enjoying the benefits of that every day. As she passed him, she saw Officer Anderson's face turn a little pale. He had no idea she was the same woman he had recklessly damaged the car for. But now, she was driving a car that looked better than ever. Maya knew the officer was probably kicking himself, but she wasn't going to rub it in. Karma had worked its magic. Maya wasn't the type to hold grudges, but she couldn't help but feel a little bit of satisfaction. The officer's reckless behavior had backfired on him in the best way possible. Her car was more than fixed, it was improved. As Maya drove on, she couldn't stop thinking about how the whole situation had unfolded. What started out as an unfair and frustrating encounter had turned into a success. She had used the officer's mistake to her advantage. And now she had a better car and a sense of empowerment. She knew, deep down, that her actions had proven something important. Staying calm in the face of adversity and taking control of the situation could lead to something better. Instead of letting the officer's mistake define her, she had turned it around and used it to improve her life. A few days later, Maya shared the story with her friends and family. She told them how the officer had destroyed her car, and how, thanks to her insurance claim, she had not only fixed it, but also made it even better. Everyone was amazed, but Maya just shrugged it off. "I just took the opportunity to turn things around," she said with a smile. "Sometimes things don't go the way we expect, but it's how we handle them that counts." Maya had never expected that something as simple as fixing her car could turn into such an important life lesson. The repairs, the upgrades, and the satisfaction of seeing her car better than before had all been part of the journey. But the most surprising thing was the support she received from others along the way. When her friends and family found out about what had happened, how the officer had damaged her car, how she had filed the insurance claim, and how the officer's mistake had actually turned into something good for her, they were all amazed. "You handled that so well," her best friend Jessica said one evening when they were having coffee. "Most people would have been upset and just let it go, but you didn't back down. You stood up for yourself, and look what happened." Maya smiled and nodded. She had always tried to handle things with grace and patience, but she had never imagined it would turn out like this. Her car was fixed, upgraded, and better than before. And even though the officer had tried to cause trouble, Maya had turned it into an opportunity to improve her life. The support from her community didn't stop with her friends and family. The more Maya talked about the incident, the more she realized how many people had been through similar situations. Many of them had experienced disrespect or unfair treatment from authority figures, but had never spoken up or tried to take action. Her story spread quickly through her neighborhood, and soon, people who had heard about it began reaching out to Maya. Some people were strangers who had heard about her victory from mutual friends. Others were neighbors who had witnessed the officer's behavior. Maya was surprised to learn that several of her neighbors had experienced similar things with police officers in the area, and they were all eager to hear how she had handled it. One of her neighbors, Mr. Lewis, had even been harassed by a police officer in the past, and he told Maya that hearing her story gave him the strength to speak up about what had happened to him. "I never thought to stand up for myself," Mr. Lewis said as he sat on Maya's porch. "But seeing how you took control of the situation made me realize that maybe I should have done the same." The sense of empowerment that spread through the community was one of the most rewarding parts of Maya's journey. She didn't just fix her car, she had inspired others to take action, to speak up, and to not let things slide when they weren't fair. For Maya, this was more than just about a car. or a police officer. This was about making sure that her voice was heard and showing others that they didn't have to accept unfair treatment. She had become a symbol of strength in her community. As the days passed, Maya started thinking about what she could do to help others who might be facing similar challenges. She had always believed in giving back, but now she felt an even stronger urge to do more. Maya began to volunteer with local organizations that supported victims of injustice, and she started helping people understand their rights and how they could stand up for themselves. It wasn't about being confrontational or seeking revenge. It was about standing up for your rights, no matter what. Maya had learned that even the smallest action could have a big impact. Standing up for yourself could spark change not only for you, but for those around you. Maya's story also reached local news outlets. Journalists and reporters began to take interest in her experience and how she had turned a negative situation into a victory. Some even interviewed her about how she had approached the whole thing with such calmness and determination. Maya shared her story widely, explaining that while the officer's actions had been wrong, the real victory was in how she handled it and how it empowered her to make a positive change. "I didn't want to just let this go," Maya said in an interview. "It wasn't about the car. It was about justice. I knew I had to stand up for myself, and that's what I did." By the time the story spread across town, Maya's car wasn't the only thing that had changed. Her community had changed too. Maya had shown people how to turn adversity into opportunity. She had given them the courage to stand up when things weren't right, and to never back down. The support and strength she had found in her community reminded her of just how important it was to support each other. For Maya, the insurance payout was just the beginning. The true reward was the empowerment and confidence that came from turning a negative experience into something positive, not just for her, but for everyone around her. As Maya sat on her porch one evening, looking out at her neighborhood, she felt a deep sense of pride, not just for what she had achieved, but for the changes she had helped create. Maya knew that no matter what happened next, she had made a difference. She had stood up for what was right, and in doing so, she had inspired others to do the same. Her car, now better than before, was just a reminder of how much had changed and how much more was possible when people came together to support one another. Absolutely. Let's continue with Outline 6. Conclusion and victory for Officer Destroys Black Woman's Car. Her insurance payout leaves him speechless. Written with simple and clear wording. After everything Maya had been through, she finally felt like the battle had ended. The car was fixed and improved. Her insurance claim had worked out better than expected, and the support she received from her community was overwhelming. But there was something more. Something Maya had learned through all of this. Patience and resilience always pay off. When she looked at her car now, she didn't just see a vehicle. She saw a reminder of everything she had accomplished. She had faced adversity head-on and not only handled it with grace, but also turned it into an opportunity to grow stronger. The car, now better than before, symbolized her journey, not just the repairs, but the confidence she had gained. And then there was the officer. Maya had no desire for revenge, but she couldn't help but think that karma had done its job. The officer who had caused her so much frustration was now faced with the fact that his actions had backfired. While he may have thought he could easily damage Maya's life, he ended up making it better. She smiled to herself, realizing that it wasn't the officer's mistake that defined her. It was how she reacted, how she took that challenge and turned it into a win for herself. A few months passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Maya had made sure that her community stayed strong, and she had continued working with local organizations to help others who were facing the same injustices she had. She spent time encouraging others to stand up for their rights, no matter how small the situation seemed. Maya understood that the real power was in taking action. It wasn't just about fixing a car. It was about fixing the mindset that says we have to accept things as they are. She was now determined to keep fighting for justice in her own way. She had learned that standing up for herself was the key to transforming any negative situation into an opportunity for growth. Maya knew she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone who had ever felt powerless. One afternoon, Maya went back to the same street where the incident had happened. It felt like it had been a lifetime ago, but everything was still fresh in her mind. As she drove past, she couldn't help but notice that the area had changed a little bit. Her community had come together and had grown stronger, not just because of her, but because of everyone who had been inspired to stand up for themselves. Maya parked her car and got out, standing tall with a sense of pride. She had turned something difficult into something meaningful, and she had changed her life for the better. More importantly, she had inspired those around her to believe in themselves and fight for what was right. As she stood there, looking around, Maya knew that her journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, but she now had the strength to face them head-on. The officer's actions may have hurt her, but they had also made her stronger and more resilient. And now, she was ready for whatever came next. As Maya walked away from the car, she reflected on everything that had happened. She had grown, and so had the people around her. Her story was a reminder that justice and fairness weren't just words. They were values that everyone could uphold. The fight wasn't always easy, but in the end, standing up for what's right was always worth it. She took a deep breath and smiled, knowing that her actions had set a new example for those who came after her. Maya had won. She had turned her struggle into a triumph, and that triumph had rippled through her community. If Maya's story inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and let us know how you would have handled the situation. And remember, always stand up for what's right. If you want to see more powerful stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching.